bring the meeting to order. If you'll please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect our staff, employees, and residents of Mount Healthy, and continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth and the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome, the very few. Roll call.
Mrs. Lingo, Mrs. Moody.
Here.
Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Mr. Redding, Mrs. Dosa, Mr. George.
Here.
Ms. Sheets.
Here.
Okay, we have 3 people absent. Ms. Dosa is on her way. Would anyone like to excuse the absent members?
Make a motion to excuse Mr. Redding and Mrs. Lingo.
Okay, Mr. George has made a motion to excuse Mr. Redding and Ms. Lingo. Do you have a second?
I think we should include Ms. Dosa on there just in case something happens.
Okay,
Good,
and Ms. Dosa.
I'll second.
Okay, Bob has seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, you have the minutes before you from the February 16th meeting. Does anybody have any corrections that they've seen or misspellings?
I have 2 small things on the second page. Business Partnership Alliance, it says Ms. Moody gave that, but I'm not sure. She wasn't here. I'm not sure who gave that.
I typed it and sent it to, who
I
said it?
gave it, yes.
The mayor did, yep.
Presented by the mayor.
You have anything else?
Yeah, on the third page, the very last word. Those are not Zoom, those are by webinar. Those training sessions.
Anybody else have anything? And I would ask for a motion to adopt as corrected.
I'll make a motion to adopt as corrected, the minutes.
Ms. Moody has made a motion to adopt the minutes as corrected. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Sheets, seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Correspondence, a couple things on your desk, in your packet. Mount Healthy Family Practice on Compton Road is pushing their COVID-19 vaccine, Saturday, March 6th. No-cost vaccine if you can get an appointment. And we have another notification from a Kirsten Jones, who works at the Hamilton County Public Health, reaching out to invite members of your church who are 65 and older and would like to get a COVID-19 vaccine at a community clinic that they're hosting in our area March 5th from 9:30 to 1 at the LifeSpring Christian Church. Where is the LifeSpring Christian Church?
That ends on Clovernook at North College Hill.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not just church members, they're extending that out.
Well, obviously, they sent it out to us.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, that's again, I know we were talking before the meeting, sometimes it's been a little tough to get people to answer the phone when you're trying to get registered somewhere. Does anybody else have any correspondence? Okay, then we'll move on to guests and special events. We have none. Public input. Time of our council meeting where we open our meeting to public input. Anybody wish to address the council with questions This has been difficult with our way we have to do our meetings. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to, if you're listening, to throw them at us. We'll come back and get them if you're not got them ready yet.
Did the governor talk about how meetings were going to change? I thought he opened up a bunch of things that
There's a lot of discussion, yeah. I don't know all the details yet, but yeah, I mean, part of what I want to talk to on my agenda too is kind of how we can start to open things up.
Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Dosa. Melanie, could you make
Yep.
mention of the time? Thank you. Mayor's report, Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, so there are a few things. With We Thrive and the business district, there have been two kind of issues that have come at us that do tie together, and they both involve parking. So with We Thrive, more in residential areas, there have been a lot of issues with cars parked over sidewalks. And we sell ourselves as a walkable city, but it's actually very difficult to navigate the sidewalks when there's cars parked on them. The business district, there's a few businesses upset with really other businesses that are parking on Hamilton Avenue and staying there the whole business day, and kind of blocking access for customers, which opens a whole nother can of worms, because then there's probably, we know there's businesses that want to do that, there's other businesses that don't want to do that. So we're working with Kim Cremines to hopefully have a work session in April to discuss that. And always enforcement is always the biggest issue, as we know, and our police are very busy right now, so we want to think outside the box and get creative here and see what we can do. So it just makes sense to tie those two issues together right now, since they both involve, traffic enforcement, parking enforcement. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Really just at first with the work session to get everybody's idea. Kim's going to bring business owners up so we can try to think through these issues in some creative ways. Other things, the Girl Scouts have reached out to me. They've been very active in our community lately. They don't have many active members in our community, but they throw events and classes that anyone can join, even if they're not members. And they have a 6-week virtual series where if you register for it, they'll drop off a box at your house with 6 different activities, and then you meet on a Zoom once a week for 6 weeks, and they guide you through them and go through the classes. And she and I, Kristen and I, tried to, I volunteered to go hang door hangers at Clovernook Apartments, but they weren't willing to allow us to do that. They don't allow soliciting, they said. We're hoping they'd make an exception. So instead, she's going to drop off flyers at their office. I don't know how effective that'll be. And then we're also she's going to have them passed out with the food distribution at Tican Farm. She's already arranged that. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the Alliance is still, I think, still dropping off weekly to the kids that were coming to the Alliance at their home. So Rob at the Alliance with Shannon Barnes,
Yep.
They could probably deliver some of those too.
Great, let me put that in my notes, because I was also going to connect her to Pastor Whaley up here and a few
Yeah.
others, just get as many kids as possible.
What about the library?
Are they open yet?
Yes, they are. I went in yesterday.
Okay. Thank you.
And also, I could take some for the community meal at Trinity.
Perfect. That's why I brought this up here. You guys are great. Let me just get all that down before I forget. Okay, that's terrific. So hopefully we'll get a good group involved there. They've been very active in our community. I'm really, really impressed with what they've done. They did a summer camp last year with like coding and tech-related stuff. They've worked with the library and had seminars up there. They're really doing great things in our community. They just need to get the word out more. All right, what was the next thing? Oh, Bill and I toured Healthcare Connection a couple weeks ago, I guess, and it's already kind of paying off. She's reaching out to Bill and I about different things with COVID, as you saw here. She also reached out to me. They're trying to do a community assessment, so they asked me to schedule a time to talk to them And they're also going to have somebody join We Thrive now so that they can learn from the whole group of some of the community needs. So it's great that they're becoming more entrenched in the community. And I just want to spotlight that. And the last thing, just happy news, Fibonacci and the Dairy Bar open up tomorrow. So tomorrow is a good day in Mount Healthy. And they do have the lights up at Fibonacci.
I saw
Use some of
Fry
our money.
Electric working, yeah.
Yeah, so it's good to see some of that.
They're going to event this weekend, too.
Yes, they're having Bachfest downtown is closed, so they're having their own Bachfest up at Fibonacci this weekend. They have a couple different Bach beers, and they have a brand-new goat, and they're the only brewery in Cincinnati with their own goats, so it fits Bachfest. So
Wonderful.
this weekend would be a great time to stop up there.
2 food trucks, one each night, and entertainment, music. That'll be awesome.
It'd be a
We
good
could do a
time.
With the fire
3K
pits.
right
Yeah.
there. I mean, that's the Bachfest run they
Yeah.
couldn't do, so we could,
Just run around town. Before you drink the beer, not afterward.
well, yeah, that's the fun of ending.
That's true. I guess that's it, yeah. So go to the Dairy Bar, go to Fibonacci tomorrow.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good times.
A little side note on the dairy bar.
Yeah.
My wife works up at Mercy Fairfield, and she says when the dairy bar opens, it's the big news of the day. Everybody, dairy bar's open in Mount Healthy. Mount Healthy Dairy Bar's open. And she says people just flock down.
That's awesome.
They really draw them in.
It's great.
Okay, any questions for the mayor? The parking thing on Hamilton Avenue, that rears its ugly head about every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
It's not new.
Right.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do is put meters back in like we had years ago.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's kind of was on my agenda item too, if I may go ahead and.
Sure, yeah,
just
go ahead.
kind of add to that is, you know, and I've talked to Kim, also, I think Jenny has, I know the mayor has, and my suggestion to her was, hey, look, get your, you know, the association, get input from them, talk to as many businesses as you can, and let's just come up to a work session and try it, or and discuss what some alternatives might be. And I agree with you, Ross. Meters would be is a solution. I don't know if that's something we'll do, but
Not one I like.
yeah, right. But we can, you know, I guess my concern is, and Mayor kind of touched on this, is that I really want to get good feedback from the business association and the businesses, and not just say we're going to do this in the whole, you know, core business district or from Madison to, you know, Hastings, something like that. But maybe we can have some pockets to try to help out some of the businesses that really want to focus on that, of where we may have 2-hour parking or 1-hour parking, and use that as a deterrent, but also be able to do some enforcement when it becomes problematic. So that is, I've talked to Kim, she's working on that, and she's planning on coming up for a work session on the 6th,
Good.
Coming up when?
The 6th?
April 6th.
April 5th, okay.
Yep. Yep, that's the first meeting in April, and that's typically when we do it, you know, have it open for work session. Also in April, since we're talking about that, just gonna skip right over March. Been trying to get all of the herding cats get the planning commission in line to have the first hearing on the zoning updates. And it looks like it's lining up for everybody to do that. I did speak to Kim today also. We're maybe going to do a Zoom call with the business association to kind of highlight the impacts to them of maybe some sign ordinance changes or whatever, just kind of out of professional courtesy. So John from Urban Fast Forward sent that information over to Kim. So we're going to just do that by Zoom. But we're going to focus on getting the planning commission. And the reason why we're going to do that on a council night, starting at 5, because the ICRC's also agreed to video it, so that people can't make it or whatever. We always run that risk. If it goes long, we just may have to pause the meeting and do it again, but I thought that would kind of work well to line all that up. So that will be happening, and obviously you can come up early if you're interested. But obviously, then the next step is it will go to council and that will be a public process too. So council will have the ultimate say in all those changes. And before I jump into Bill's email that I thought was helpful, speaking of that, and Cindy brought up, I know the governor's made changes. I'm hoping, and I talked to Scott today, Scott Solman, is to reopen in at least council meetings that first week in April. We're going to have a work session with people in it. I mean, kind of adhere to, I mean, things are cramped now because of all the construction, but kind of, they're doing the same thing with the mayor's court, and they spread out the chairs, try to get the social distancing. Unless things dramatically change, is everybody comfortable with kind of targeting that date too? I mean, we'll continue to still have it on YouTube. And then we got to figure out, we had questions about the community room. We really still haven't been renting that out. Where can we go? It sounds like they're hoping to get expansions with the, with wedding or, different things. I didn't get all the details on it today, but we'll get clarity on that. Maybe we can even open up the community room to rentals again for people. So just kind of circle April and try to target that. The other thing that was in the packet was an email from Bill. Bill and I were having different discussions. I said, put down some of the things that you'd like to focus on, and we'll talk about it. And all these things I think are great. I kind of starred the ones I think are a good priority that can need to happen, that he can be helpful with, and start to work with everybody on that. I think that will keep him very busy. I think the sidewalk and driveway thing is a good thing, but that can be a really financial impact on people. And Bill and I talked of different ways that we could look to do that. Another community he worked for, the city came in and identified it, and then hired a contractor, and either people could use that contractor and pay for it, or if not, if it was identified as a problem, the city would do it and assess it. We'd have to do some budgeting and thinking on that. If we really wanted to get aggressive, you talked about wanting to continue to make city a walkable, but that could be somewhat of a benefit, for folks, because you can get a much better price if you're talking a bigger type of thing. But I told Bill, why don't we focus on the first two and this other one with parking, and maybe just kind of keep that one simmering, give you something to think about, as a potential future or something, maybe even for next year. One of the things that Bill, and it's not quite what the mayor was talking about, because I think he was more so on parking over the driveway, over the sidewalk with cars. One of the issues that we always have, and people have seen it, is the cars that park over either the curb or up close to the sidewalk. And this is the current reading on parking prohibitions right there, and you see number 3.1 on a sidewalk. And I think a lot of times that is somewhat problematic. Bill's like for us to update the language that he pulled from somewhere else on a sidewalk or the area between the curb and the sidewalk, except a bicycle. Now, Bill still can't enforce that. Ultimately, becomes a police enforcement ticket, but he could do. A lot of times, Bill, first step on any kind of property maintenance violation is just a letter of, hey, you're in violation. You give them some time, give them a notice, and maybe try to just notify these folks that are doing this. And if that doesn't work, then we get the police more involved to write the citations. I thought that was good, but council would have to update that language. So I think these are all good things Bill's looking at. I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts or concerns, or think it's a good place for him to start amongst all the other
I
property
think it's
maintenance things
wonderful.
we do.
I've seen many times young mothers out with their strollers,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to go out in the street to go around the cars. And it just.
You're
it's
talking
sad.
when they're in a driveway across
Yeah,
the
they
sidewalk?
Park
Yeah.
across the driveway, half in the approach and half in the driveway. And,
Yeah, and that could be a twofold process. I mean, that Bill could look at, if we update the language to get the cars that are parking in the right of way or in that strip between the curb and the sidewalk, but also if it's parked across the sidewalk in a driveway, again, it would be more of a notification from him. This isn't allowed, and then would have to get with more police involvement for actually writing the citation.
On this thing about rubbish, says after 6 o'clock. I thought we had something already in the ordinances that was
We do.
like 4 o'clock.
I thought it was,
I thought it was 5.
Oh, at 5, 4,
I
5?
don't know.
I don't think this is a proposed change. I'm assuming Bill looked at this, but whatever the date is, that's Bill, is going to be a focus for Bill to provide notice of that, because I know Ray's been getting some complaints, and these are just things that he's looking to focus on, whatever that day, if it's 4, 5, or 6 o'clock, that's what
I
the
can
notice
look it
would be.
up.
I know
Yeah.
we also have, part of our code is how long you have to get the empties back off the street.
Yes,
Right.
I don't know what that is anymore, but,
that's an issue too.
yeah.
Well, some people work and they can't get them till they get home
No,
from
some
work,
of 'em
but,
sit out there a
but they should be back in by 5 o'clock or at the latest. I mean, most,
Well,
I'd get it to 7, 8 o'clock that night, but get it in that day.
yeah, the
you know,
day,
unless you're-
pickup day sometime.
If I was to go out of town, I'd check with my neighbor and have them do it. That's what I do, but, anyway.
yep. This is talking about cans being stored in the front yard too, and really, the focus would be on all that section, getting them out too early, cans stored in the front, or people not bringing them back.
And how do you define what's the front yard? I mean,
Yeah. I guess unless you live on a corner, I mean, if you live on a corner, anything from the, anything from the front of the house out. I know it gets a little tricky sometimes when you're on a corner, which side is it facing, but that's typically,
okay, I mean, I think we need to tell people what the definition is, so.
I'm sure in the letter, he would explain that, try to explain to them what they're in violation of, hopefully.
I mean,
So-
from my perspective down on proposed changes, I mean, if people park in an intersection in front of a fire hydrant or in a crosswalk, they need to be told that that's not what we do.
Right,
I mean,
again, these aren't all changes. This is the current section of how it reads. 3:1, it states on a sidewalk except for provided. He's wanting to change just that section. Everything else will remain the same to on a sidewalk or the area between the curb and sidewalk. That's the only proposed change with that, just to be for clarity.
So, Bill, night is the first line of dealing with the infractions?
That's what his focus would be with this,
Okay,
yes.
I mean, okay, I'm just trying to understand the process.
Yep. Right. The process can be, the police can issue a citation for these violations. Not always, do they get to a lot of these things. Bill's feels that he can help with some of this, especially with the repeat offenders, in providing the information to them. If they don't, then he's the direct contact to the police that says, hey, this is a problem. I've sent 2 letters here. We need to get a citation on this.
And if we adopt this, then the police will be informed about this?
What are we adopting?
I mean, so it sounds to me from what you've said that this is the rule, the bottom part, proposed change, the only change is on a sidewalk or the area between the curb and the sidewalk except the bicycle. So we have the rest of this, which is already part of our ordinances.
Correct.
Correct?
Mhm.
But these are not being enforced now. And so I guess I was kind of thinking that that's what our discussion tonight was going to be in addition, is that are we going to enforce these? And then how are we going to enforce these? And
I would disagree with you. There are some being enforced. I'm sure people have gotten tickets for a variety of these. Maybe not, I know you gave me the example today, maybe not on every situation. And like I said to you earlier, that's, depending on the severity or what's going on or the situation, I don't think that an officer will give a citation on every case. To say these aren't being enforced, I don't think is fair.
Can I, Ross, President?
Yes.
I will say that with See-Click Fix, it helps a whole lot because I've used that, and I had an incident with someone that had vehicles parked over the sidewalk and had conversation with the neighbor, just a nice conversation, but nothing was going to happen. So when you use See-Click Fix, and he had to move it back, I mean, it did happen, and it did work. I'm not sure exactly if Bill handled it first. I believe he did, but he did push his truck back. So now you can walk over the sidewalk. So I think the C-Click Fix is a good tool to use
point.
because that automatically goes to somebody. And then the process starts, and then you just keep hitting C-Click Fix. When it isn't happening, I just do it again. Because because then that says, because a lot of times people will say, well, that's a problem, but if nobody reports it and they don't report it consistently, there's no evidence of we've got an issue here too. Because somebody could park over the sidewalk just momentarily, or maybe they were there a day, but, there are chronic situations.
There's
So
no
that's
doubt.
what I did. I used C-Click Fix.
Right.
And happened to see the neighbor out and tried to be nice and talk to him, but obviously that wasn't gonna help, so,
And also, Cindy, what I could do, I can have a report run to see how many of these citations were written last year. These parking violations.
yeah.
I'm speaking from my street. I see it day in and day out, and I haven't so much. Because actually, when I reported my C-Click Fix.
Yeah.
It said that it was being shared with Fox 19. And I was like, I'm not sure I really want that. Anyway, it really has stopped me from thinking about doing that. And, but I know my neighbor, he's on his,
I see it, because it's a public thing, so I know I know you're talking about. I know the car and the violation, it's constant, yeah.
and it's been chronic for years. You guys got to know me because I came up to complain about my street. And I did talk to my neighbor. I was out walking and said, hey, sorry you're having trouble with your car. I hope it they were working on it. And you're parked in front of a fire hydrant, so would you move? And he said the police came down and they didn't say anything to me. I truly was embarrassed. And I stopped, it was like, well, I'm going to a fish fry. Come on up.
But you didn't tell the whole story there. His car was parked in a no parking lane, fire lane, in front of a hydrant, but he was fixing a broken down car across the street.
Yes, that's true. But
Right. So again, I don't know what I can address this with, here's the frustration that I have, is you can't give these examples, but also tell me not to follow up with it. Because if it's an issue, then we need to follow up with it.
Well, I guess the reason I tell you not to follow up on this specific one is, on my street, I have seen this repeatedly, that, first of all, we've still got cars parked in front of houses that for months, and my frustration is either I don't understand the process, and that's what I'm trying to learn to understand. And as I've said before, I've never been a police officer. I've never walked in their shoes. I don't know what their shoes feel like. So, I can't say where their frustrations are. I can say where my frustrations are is that particular house, we have reported them repeatedly, and things don't change. I have tried to talk to them. I've offered them flowers. I've taken them flowers from my garden. So I think I've done the things.
So did we never respond? Were there ever tickets issued?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
Right. And when I've had trouble with places and then they've been very nasty to me and I've called the police, I didn't really get satisfaction. And the police said I had to make a report. And I'm like, that just aggravates the situation and escalates it. I should be able to go over and say at midnight, please don't honk your horn, and not be threatened. Those kind of things.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, I don't understand the process. Several of my neighbors don't. I don't think we're isolated to our cul-de-sac. If we are, I'm terribly in the wrong.
Well, like I tried to explain the other day, and that's kind of what we're talking about here, whether we like to hear this or not, parking violations aren't a huge priority for our police, because they are very, very busy, with a lot of other things that are going on. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't pay attention to it, and it doesn't mean they shouldn't respond when they're called, if somebody's in a violation of something, especially if it becomes a problem. But, and we should. And like I said, your chronic, you live it every day, and I understand that. And I mentioned this to you before. Probably the only person that is aware that was working here when you started complaining about this is one officer. So we have a great deal of turnover. So our priorities every day change. It's speeding, it's stop sign violations, it's different things, and we have one or two officers that are there. It doesn't mean that it can't become a priority again, and if it is, then you should let them know. And to think that our officers are going to continuously follow up because of a parking lane, of a fire lane violation on a specific dead-end street, I'm sad. It's just not, unless it becomes a priority. We talk about this all the time. Let them know, and they'll respond. But I mean, I get lots of emails of stop signs, of speeding, of different things, and they retarget on different areas. I don't want you to be frustrated. If you need that to be followed up on again, then let them know.
One more thing, and then I'm done, is that I think my street is a microorganism of the community. It's not, and that's what my concern is. And again, if I'm wrong, then you can tell me that the rest of the Mount Healthy is not like that, and that maybe I need to move off my street. But that, from my viewpoint, it's like, I don't think I'm being targeted or anything like that, in our street is being targeted for bad behavior or not enforcement or anything like that. I wonder, I'm not afraid to come up and speak about it. I know a lot of people are afraid to speak about things. And that's. Okay.
Well, Cindy, can I ask a question?
Yes, Jenny.
Are these going to be discussion points also at our work session?
What's that?
This thing
Not-
from Bill Knight?
The rubbish and probably not the
Well, the
rubbish.
parking,
Parking, the idea for.
I think you said with the work session, we're not only going to talk about the frustration of parking in the business district, but we're also going to talk about this too, right? Or am I correct on that or not?
I think that Jamie said that yes, that.
Some of it flows over a little bit is
I've
the
only
lack
asked,
of.
I can only tell you what I've done. I've asked Kim to come up about the
Yeah, I've
parking
done-
uptown. This is kind of this was brought to me up between the time I talked to Kim and Bill, given his priorities. I think his priority is more of parking between the curb and the sidewalk.
Right.
But doesn't mean that we couldn't piggyback on with that and cars parking over the sidewalk. For a focus for him, we would change the language currently as it reads in the ordinance, and then we could easily tell Bill, not only do we want to focus on the curb and the sidewalk, but we also want to focus on parking over the sidewalk from a driveway
Right,
perspective.
yeah, because I know with some of the businesses I've talked to, especially some of the new ones, they have frustrations too with the parking situation. We talked to, you addressed the fact that some of the, and we're gonna talk about this, you know what, we'll just talk
Yeah.
about it at the work session.
I don't- I
'Cause
mean,
we can
I
get
can
over,
have-
we can go
right,
on and on
right.
about it.
And
I
tell
guess-
them to come up,
Huh?
invite them. if
Well,
you've spoken
I
to them.
have, yeah,
Well, because when I got the call, I then reached out to some other businesses who actually want to be able to park on Hamilton Avenue, which is a whole nother issue.
Right.
This is a very difficult,
yeah.
Right, and that's why
Yeah.
that's my main focus is I just don't want this to become a blanket, right? Where we're going to say we might be able to do a pocket, we might be able to do a block, because the majority of businesses on this block between Compton and Perry say absolutely. So let's do that versus just making it from north to south, because there's other sections that may not want it, and that's kind of the intent of that. But
Yeah,
to
and
ask
I
your-
don't think, and we don't know right now where we're going with this,
Right.
except that
Right.
in certain, And we need to talk about this
Right,
later.
but I guess, just to follow up,
Yeah.
just to get closure.
Yeah.
My next step for this is to get an ordinance drafted so that we can change the language,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we don't need to, we can do that without the work session. And then I can reiterate to Bill that, hey, we've changed this language. We want to look at this, but we also want to look at the parking over the driveway. And, you know, and then have him follow up in 6 months and as to kind of where that's going. And I don't think it needs to be part of the work session, if that makes sense to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
This should, the red line there should just say on or across a sidewalk, or the area between the curb and the sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, this isn't built, yeah, okay.
agreed. I do want to say, the question that we had about the time, that's what I was doing on my phone, was looking up our ordinances. That is the current language, that 307.2. So 6 PM is the time
That's the
that's in the
current, okay.
ordinance.
6 PM, really?
6 PM. That is the language in our ordinances.
That's all I have.
Else, Bill?
tonight, bro. Unless
Questions?
anybody has any more questions about this?
Yeah. Anybody else have a question? Okay, then we're going to move on to ordinances and resolutions. We do not have any second readings of ordinances or resolutions. We do have first readings on both, though. First reading on an ordinance. An ordinance establishing a certain rate of pay for the position of full-time police clerk. And that is ordinance number 21-1941. Now, there's a section 2 down there says that they would like this passed.
Can't,
Section 2 should not be in this ordinance, in my opinion, and or the next resolution that we're going to talk about either, but
doesn't matter because we don't have enough.
We don't
to
have
waive
enough.
the
we
reading.
can't pass it anyway, right?
And Scott's, I haven't heard back from Scott, but as soon as we do, I will. But just so everybody understands, are we up for discussion on this yet, or did you?
Yes, go ahead.
So the reason this came up is that our previous clerk left and went to Marymount and gave us a 2-week notice. It was pretty quick. Things can really get backed up on mayor's court stuff. And the biggest challenge there is hiring somebody that's already certified on the ICRC computers. ICRC, yeah. And we were able to find somebody for this position, and we told her it's contingent on council approving this salary number. However, we wanted her to get with the previous clerk before she left it to soak in as much of that knowledge as we could. So we were hoping we could get it passed tonight. And obviously we can't. We have to pass it at the next one. But I'm just hoping council will understand. I mean, this is only like 60 cents more than what we're paying, the 60 or 70 cents more than what we're paying.
80 cents.
80 cents that we're paying, we paid the previous one. And that, you know, it's obviously going to be totally up to you guys, but I'll just have to go back and tell this employee that we won't have it finalized until, you know, in the worst case scenario, we have an ordinance passed that provides that range. And my plan would be to go ahead and pay her at the higher rate. And then if council doesn't want to pass this in 2 weeks, then we'd have to revert back to the old.
Well,
Any
there-
other discussion, council?
Will there be a payroll before the next council
Yeah.
meeting? Oh, okay.
And
Yes,
could we
Jenny?
do it retroactive?
We can?
Okay,
Yeah, we've done that before.
yeah.
Yep, that's a great point. Yeah, I would ask you to do that for sure.
Because we could say that unless somebody has major objection right
Right.
now, we have some people that are not here, but, you know, this would be retroactive.
Yep, we can probably modify the language in there to add, Melanie could add, I know we've done it before, we've done ordinances retroactive. I'll just get what that requirement is.
Well, I think that'd be a good idea instead of losing a new employee before they get started.
Right.
Over 80 cents.
Yeah.
You agree? Any other questions regarding this, council?
I just, again, want to, section 2 here and in the resolution, talk about our three-quarter majority vote to suspend the 2 reading rule, and in my opinion, has never been in any of our legislation, and I think it should not be in there, and I hope it's not in any more going forward. It doesn't change what's in the legislation. I mean, that's fine, but I just think it's extraneous and
Redundant because it is the law.
well, but we always talk about that when we come up with the legislation, and we say, we need 6 people, and then
Sure.
to waive the reading rule, and
And unless Bob's not here, we typically do that, but when he was out in COVID, we waived the 3 reading rule, so. And I don't know if that's maybe Scott just trying to guide us, but I don't know, I haven't gotten a response back from him.
okay.
And I don't think it's necessary, and we don't, I'm sure we don't need it. But.
I mean, normally the person sponsoring the legislation says, I'd like to get this passed so we can do such and such.
Sure.
And,
Right.
and we comply if we have 6 people.
Right.
Okay, first reading, council? Any other questions? Everybody agree on the first reading? Okay. All right, then we have a resolution. First reading, a resolution authorizing the city manager of the city of Mount Healthy to execute contracts as required to lease EMS equipment. Resolution 21-1159. This is about that lift we discussed at our last meeting.
Correct. And Ms. Sheets brought up a good point to me today. This is a lease agreement with a purchase to buy for $1 at the end of that agreement. So that's how they have this set up.
Yeah. It's slightly different than I presented at the last meeting. It's a lease. It's slightly less money. It's
is.
15-something thousand per year instead of the 17 I was talking about. And, but it's still 0% interest or just three payments of the same amount.
Right. And if council passes this at the next meeting, then the fire department, out of their association funds, is gonna pay for the first year, and then the city would
Right.
have to budget for the next 2. That's not different.
Any other questions, council? First reading, we really have no choice, so first reading, everybody agree? That is all of our legislation. Old business.
I got a question for Mr. Coker. The SCIP and LTIP, or whatever they were, the funding for the streets. Do we know if those 2 disqualifications went through and Hamilton
Yes.
got funded?
Yes.
Very good.
That's,
Yeah,
I
I
haven't
don't
heard
think.
anything differently, and that's what I was told the last time, so yes, that's the plan.
Okay, thank you.
And when do they do the work? Is that this year or next year?
That project is completely funded now through 2 different grant sources, so the funds that we just received will be in this year, but the other funds that we got from the state, it's not gonna bid till a year from now. So that project won't begin until, spring of 2022.
Okay.
Which is the bad news. The good news is the whole $1 million+ project is totally funded through different grants.
Yeah, I can wait a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only have to pay some concrete work and stuff, maybe, what'd you say, $20,000, $30,000?
Potentially, yeah. But hopefully between the 2, because it's always, the program funds the project at 80/20 if we just grind and overlay. So they often estimate the difference being the project coming in at a 50/50 match, but we're hoping that that's not the case, because we've been a little progressive on replacing a lot of the handicap ramps and different things, so through different sources. So we're hoping that that's not the case. But yeah, we could be on the hook for some money, but on a $1.1 million project, not much.
Yeah.
So the project this year that will hopefully get started here soon is the completion of the Adams Hickman Elizabeth Street project. That's the one that will be on the, for this year. And then in August, September timeframe, we will request another round of funds for our next priority project, which would be last year. Compton was one of our priorities, and also the Madison project. So we'll discuss that again before we go through that process.
Any other old business? Have they begun on the streetlight projects yet?
They have.
Whether, besides engineering, what are they doing?
No, they've replaced a lot of the light. They've replaced the traffic heads, a lot of the components and a lot of the crosswalks, but a lot of the crosswalk signals are even being done.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one at Clovernook and Compton has been replaced, the signal.
They've been working up, I think, by Madison and Hamilton.
Yeah,
area.
quite a few of them have been. I don't know off the top of my head.
Somebody was digging a hole by Compton and Hamilton out in the street. They were patching it when I come by. Would that be that company then?
I don't think there. I know there was. It's Capital Electric is who's doing the project, so their trucks are white and they're
Okay.
typically around. But
All right, super.
yep.
Any other old business, council? New business?
I was
Sheets.
pleased to see, we've got crossing guards at Hamilton Avenue and Adams. I was tickled to see that. So however that got taken care of, that's wonderful. And I saw them someplace
School did
else.
that last year also.
Really?
It's a school, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For the elementary dismissal, not for the high school, junior high.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just tickled. He seems to be a very pleasant person.
They have had an issue getting people to do it. It's quite often cafeteria workers, if they can get them to do it. But it has been an issue finding employees because there aren't many people that only want to work an hour a day. So they're lucky when they can find cafeteria workers to do it. And I know it's been hard in the past year with COVID because a lot of them are not only cooking for the students in school, but are also doing the food boxes that are going out to the communities. So that has been a struggle. But yeah, I'm glad they're able to get them this year.
Yeah, I was thrilled to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? New business?
I was just gonna reiterate that even though Miss Cindy already said it, the library opened up officially yesterday. So that's a good thing.
That's great. That's great. Is this starting to see signs of a light at the end of the tunnel here that we're getting out of this?
Hopefully.
Everybody's walking around with sore shoulders on the shots, so. Okay. What is your wish, council? If there's no other new business, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Scott, did you have anything?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Where are we at? Adjournment. Ms. Dosa has made a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Mr. George has seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.